This is just the news. We start with an update on the farmer protest. Now, thousands of farmers are still camping outside the Mini-Secretariat, which is in Karnal, where offices of all the senior officers, including DC and SP, are situated. The Chief Minister's residence is barely 3 kilometers away from that secretariat. Now, there are at least 40 companies of security forces, including the Central Armed Police Force, the Border Security Force, who have been deployed especially around that secretariat. The second round of talks that took place between the farmers and the government today, between the Karnal administration and the farmers, have also failed. Speaking to media people, the BKU, the Bharatiya Kisan Union leader Rakesh Tikhayat, said the administration is refusing to take any action against the officials who were responsible for the lathi charge that took place against the farmers on the 28th of August. Tikhayat, who had earlier said the bureaucracy is doing its best to protect Subdivisional Magistrate Ayush Sinha. Remember, Ayush Sinha was caught on video instructing police officers to break the heads of the farmers, after which there was a severe lathi charge that took place and many farmers were injured. Farmers have said that they will carry on what they're calling their Pakka Dharna at the spot, and more supporters will join them from Uttar Pradesh and from Punjab. Tikhayat today also said the Haryana Chief Minister Manohar Lal Khattar wants to shift the agitation from the Delhi border to Karnal, which is why he's doing this. He said, "We have surrounded Delhi from all 5 sides. A large number of people are now in Haryana. We must understand the Chief Minister's ploy and continue with our mobilization on Delhi's borders." End quote. Tikhayat also said the administration could have declared the Anaj Mandi a jail, just like Mumbai had done with Azad Maidan. But he said the Karnal administration, if they had done that, we would have also brought our animals here. This is a big win for us. Haryana BKU chief Gurnam Singh Chaduni has said that they will carry on the siege until their demands are met as well. According to the Indian Express, in the meantime, BJP MP Videndra Singh Mast has said the government will not withdraw the 3 farm laws. He said farm laws are not made to be withdrawn. In the meantime, the central government today has announced the new minimum support prices for the 6 Rabi crops for the 2022-23 market season. Now, with this, the MSP for wheat has seen an increase of 2%, which is the lowest it has seen in the last 12 years. On the other hand, the MSP for barley, gram, masoor, rapeseed, mustard, safflower have increased from a range of 2% to about 8.6%. This also comes in the background of the farmers' protest, where they're asking for various crops and MSP and demanding a legal guarantee to MSP. Now, the statement that was put out by the government said the Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs, chaired by the Prime Minister, approved the increase of minimum support prices and mandated that Rabi crop for this season have these prices. Now, basically, the statement also said that the idea behind this change of pricing is to encourage more farmers to stop growing wheat and rice and to start instead growing other crops like dal or pulses, or also edible oils. The central government today informed the Supreme Court that the Armed Forces has decided to induct women in the National Defence Academy, or the NDA. The Additional Solicitor General, who is a lawyer who represents the Government of India, Aishwarya Bhati, appearing for the central government, told the bench, headed by Justice S.K. Kaul, that the decision has been taken at the highest level of the armed forces, as also the government, that women will be inducted into permanent commission through the NDA. The Additional Solicitor General asked the court for time to place details on how this will actually be put into place through an affidavit, and asked that this year status quo be maintained in the examination because procedural and infrastructural changes need time. So effectively, the Supreme Court was hearing a case that asked the court to pass directions on government and the armed forces to allow for women to take the exam this year and to enroll in the National Defence Academy. Now, the court had repeatedly told the government that it has to increase or has to improve gender equality within the armed forces. But it had also said that it's ideally not something that the court should mandate, but the government and the armed forces should reach that decision themselves. So the government has said that they have reached that decision, but they said that it's not going to happen right away. The matter will be heard again in the next 2 weeks. In the meantime, the Supreme Court has said that courts cannot presume that all deaths that took place in the country during the second wave of COVID were caused by medical negligence. The court refused to entertain a plea that was filed before it asking for compensation for the families of everyone who died during the second wave of COVID, treating it as medical negligence. The benches of Justice D.Y. Chandrachud, Vikram Nath, and Hema Kohli asked the petitioner, Deepak Raj Singh, to instead approach competent authorities with his suggestions. The top court actually referred to a recent verdict from the Supreme Court on the 30th of June, where it had asked the National Disaster Management Authority to come up with an amount that could be given by government to all the families who were suffering because they lost someone during COVID. And they suggested that that verdict takes a view with regard to humanity, not with regard to negligence. And that's a better way to approach the problem. Taking a look at the COVID numbers, India reported 37,875 new COVID cases and 369 deaths over the last 24 hours. Kerala reported 30,000, out of that 37,000 new COVID cases and 181 deaths in 24 hours alone. The Supreme Court bench, headed by Justice Chandrachud, observed today that door-to-door vaccination is not feasible and it cannot pass a general direction to scrap the existing vaccine policy in its entirety. This comes after a plea was filed before the Supreme Court to allow door-to-door vaccination of disabled people and people who come from weaker sections of society. To this, the court observed that vaccination drive is already in progress and 60% of our population have received at least one dose. 12% of the population is completely vaccinated. The top court noted that the situation is very different in different parts of the country and therefore to scrap the entire policy does not make sense. Odisha has issued fresh guidelines for schools after several teachers and students tested positive for COVID in the state's Karnal and Bargarh districts. Out of 762 new COVID cases in the state in the last 24 hours, 102 were of children below the age of 18. The fresh guidelines say students and teachers have to wear masks in school at all points when they enter the school. And right now, classes are being held for standards 9, 10, and 12. According to PTI, starting this Friday, which is Ganesh Chaturthi in Mumbai, which is a massive festival, the Mumbai Civic body, though, has put restrictions on those celebrations. It has banned physical darshan of devotees in public pandals and imposed restrictions on the number of people in processions. Now, the BMC has said that public pandals will have to provide online darshan so that people don't gather in those pandals. They also said that when bringing idols into the city and also taking them for immersion, only 10 people will be allowed at a time. Not more than 5 for one household Ganpati. The guidelines also say that all devotees should wear masks, observe social distancing, and the 10 people who are allowed have to be fully vaccinated with at least a 15-day gap from their second dose of vaccine. And on to international news right now. We'll take a look specifically at news coming in from Afghanistan, where the Taliban has announced their cabinet on Tuesday. Now, 3 days, incidentally, after Pakistan's ISI chief visited Kabul, perhaps to advise or aid on government formation. This is according to an article in the Indian Express. Now, in terms of structure, the supreme leader of the Taliban, Mullah Habibullah Akhundzada, is Afghanistan's supreme authority, but he's not formally part of the government. According to the statement that was released about cabinet appointments, Akhundzada has instructed the new government to uphold Islamic rules and Sharia law in Afghanistan, suggesting that he is going to be giving instructions to the government that is in place. The Taliban formally declared a caretaker government on Tuesday, appointing cabinet ministers who were largely loyalists from the 1990s run. So there are no new faces, there are no women, there are no representatives of any minority community. And these are the details of some of the office holders that we know based on reports from the New York Times and the Indian Express, right? The Prime Minister of Afghanistan in the Taliban government is Mullah Muhammad Hassan. He was one of the founding members of the Taliban back in the 1990s. Hassan will hold the prime ministerial role and look after the day-to-day government. He was the former deputy prime minister and foreign minister during the previous run of the Taliban in the 90s. And during the 2 decades of insurgency that followed when they were out of power, he was low profile, but he was coordinating apparently from Quetta in Pakistan. Now, the deputy prime minister, one of the deputy prime ministers, there are 2, is Mullah Abdul Ghani Baradar. Now, he holds senior posts in the first Taliban government as well, starting in 1996. He gained a reputation for being one of the most brutal commanders on the battlefield when the Taliban was suppressing their opponents. He was serving as the Deputy Minister for Defense back in 2001. And like other leaders, he fled to Pakistan when the government fell. The Interior Minister, Sirauddin Haqqani, is the son of Mujahideen commander and Haqqani network founder Jalaluddin Haqqani. He is one of the biggest winners apparently of this return to power. He will be acting as Interior Minister in charge of law and order, possibility even local governance, and has ensured his commanders positions in other key departments of government as well. He actually, his Haqqani network has close ties apparently to Pakistani intelligence and was a dogged opponent of the US presence in Afghanistan, responsible for hostage taking, targeted assassinations, suicide bombings, including some huge truck bombings that killed civilians in Kabul. Now, some of these members are on the most wanted list of the CIA and the FBI. There's an intelligence chief called Abdul Haq Wasik. He was one of the 5 Guantanamo Bay prisoners that America released in exchange to one of their own prisoners. Upon his release, he went to Doha in Qatar, and he was a key member in the Taliban negotiations with America. His interrogation files from Guantanamo accuse him of close ties to Al-Qaeda, including arranging for the terrorist group, giving them training, intelligence agents of the Taliban government. Now, effectively, those watching basically say that the Taliban has been pretending to be something different from what it was the last time around, but these names suggest that nothing has changed because they have not included anyone new. They're largely rewarding the people who have been fighting, who've been leaders of their fight for the last 20 years. There isn't anybody new. There are no women like they promised. There are no representatives of minorities, and it doesn't look that their policies would have changed. And here are some clues about that as well. After the new cabinet was unveiled, the Taliban's education minister made a statement questioning education. He effectively said PhD degrees are useless. He said, and I quote, "No PhD degree, master's degree is valuable today. You see the mullahs and the Taliban that is in power. They have no PhD, no MA, not even a high school degree, but they are the greatest of all." End quote. Now, this quote actually raised eyebrows all across the world, where people suddenly got very worried about what's going to happen to the education system at all if this is what the new education minister sounds like. Now, in an interview with Australian broadcaster SBS, the deputy head of Taliban's Cultural Commission, Ahmadullah Wasik, said Afghan women could be banned from playing sports altogether under the new Taliban government. He said, and I quote, "I don't think women should be allowed to play cricket because it is not necessary for women to play cricket. In cricket, they might face a situation where their face or body will not be covered. Islam does not allow women to be seen like this. This is the media era where there will be photos and videos and then people will watch it. Islam and the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan do not allow women to play cricket or any other kind of sports where they get exposed." So all of this now pointing very clearly to the fact that this is the old Taliban, especially when it comes to rights of women. And that's perhaps not changed, especially when it comes to education as of now. I'm going to leave you with one piece of positive news before we leave you for today. IIT Jodhpur has launched an initiative called Desert Ecosystem Sciences Guided by Nature and Selection. It's called Designs with an S, with the aim to conserve the Thar Desert in Rajasthan. It aims to restore the desert's minerals, its flora and fauna through a transdisciplinary framework of using medical engineering, environmental and life sciences. The data will be helpful in finding solutions for the management of diseases that are common in desert regions. We're going to leave you there. Thank you so much for listening to the news and for being such solid sources of support to us. We look forward to your feedback as well. Leave us a comment and a feedback. Thank you for watching. Good night.